Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Holly and today I'm going to be taking these 75p Tesco Value Reject Valentine's fridge magnets and turning them into not that. Because these are really gross and girly and like love is love, I love you kind of stuff. Love conquers all. This one particularly irks me. I'm going to be turning them into not that at all, like quite gothy I'm going for today. So I'm thinking 2 animal skeletons, maybe 2 skulls, some weird stuff. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to sort of wing this today, not overplan it, and sort of go with the flow a bit. I'm going to be covering these in spray paint, same ones I've been using in my previous videos. Today it's just going to be matte black again, and then using a combination of my PC1M 7mm nib Posca pens and my stash of acrylic paint today as well, to sort of cover these in some cool designs. And then I'm going to be finishing it all off with the Rust-Oleum clear coat, got it one, finishing spray, which is a spray lacquer, I don't know, but it will make them all nice and shiny. It means people can sort of like handle them, throw them about, and hopefully it shouldn't chip off all my paint. That's the general gist for today. So I'm going to get spray painting while it's still sunny outside, and I'll see you in a minute. So when I started off this fish, all I knew was that I wanted to draw a fish skeleton. I'd had this reference image for a little over a year and a half now and hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do with it yet. And I really enjoyed doing this one. Because so far I've done a lot of projects with these Posca pens where I did a lot of filling in stuff, and so it was quite nice using them for mostly line work. I felt like they didn't come out as patchy as they do for blocking in, but I honestly do believe that a lot of that is because I'm using a very thin nib. Whereas maybe I need to invest in some chisel nib chunky boys for other projects, who knows. When I was doing the anatomy of this, I'm doing a simplified version of what this fish skeleton actually looks like. It has a lot more detail on the spines and there's a lot more variation between the fins, but because I'm working on quite a small claustrophobic surface, I didn't want to overcrowd it. So I took out some of the extra details, because on something like this, if you're doing this at home, where you're using mostly the same thickness of pen for everything, sometimes if you do too many details, it can kind of just look bad and kind of blobby. So I'm really focusing on the main anatomy for this fish. And I decided to give him some bling because this whole set is gold and white and black, to make him more cohesive with the rest of the set. Stick around to the end of this video, by the way, because I do a lot of extra details and things like that off screen. So the things you're seeing just now are not the final product. When I was planning out this fish, all I knew is that I wanted him to have a crown, and as I went along, because I'm trying to do this project a bit more loosey-goosey, if you will, I decided I wanted some of his little spines to be gold. I did a little bit of studding I actually cover up what I did with the eye just then because I didn't like it very much. But it was kind of fun because I'm sort of getting quicker at fixing my mistakes from just winging stuff like this. So what you just saw was a mistake. I had this acrylic paint at the side and it does not agree with magnets. I don't know if it's the kind of paint I had or what, but it was revolting. It did not set at all, so I just wiped it off and started again with the pens. It actually took me more layers than usual to get this white even. I think I did 4 in the end. I don't know if that's because of the magnets or what, but it was quite hard to get even on this one. This is just based off Coyote teeth, and I really like this design. Originally I was going to do a full-blown Coyote skull, but at this point I was like, it's a lot of skulls, there's a lot of skeletons. I just want something a bit more graphic and a little bit of a different composition as well, rather than just having something facing to the side in the middle of the thing, if that makes sense. If you're working on a set like this for yourself, I'd highly recommend putting some variation into the pieces that you decide to draw, because when you put them all together at the end, it will look better. And it gives your eye something interesting to move across as well. For the teeth, I do actually go back in later and add in a lot more detail with little cracks and things like that. But a top tip if you're doing teeth on your own magnets would be to do what I've just done here. I left about a millimeter gap between the white and the gold. And what this actually did when it was all dry and I was doing this sort of outlining bit is created a well for the black ink. And I found it worked really, really well to stop it bleeding into the other paint or like going too crazy with the line variation. And I think it came out looking super duper clean because of that. And I also just added in some hatching to make the teeth look like they're a bit recessed into the skull rather than just sort of sitting on top of it as well. And I did some little highlights with white, which I love how they came out. And I resisted the urge to outline my highlights, which I always do normally. This one is one of my favorites. This was kind of inspired by the clay video that I did last week, so go check that out if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I did a sort of marble effect on those with some, I think it's Kitsune inspired cracks, sort of like porcelain repaired with gold. And I kind of wanted to take inspiration from that and do it in a sort of different way where it's revealing something gold instead of just being sort of like sealed up from that. And I wanted something different texture wise that included the background of the magnet a bit more on this one, rather than it just being a free floating subject matter in the middle of it, if you know what I mean. I actually really like how the cracks came out in this. It's not something that I've ever been exceptionally good at, but I think having the practice last week on those magnets, doing it on a natural shape, watch the video, you'll know what I mean, really has sort of enforced how to do those shapes in my head. when I went in and did the details for this one, I mostly just used the Posca pen on this one. I didn't go back in after with a finer pen. I think if you were doing a skull or something as detailed as this any smaller, so this actual, like the cat skull itself is about, I wouldn't say it's more than 10 centimeters across long ways. I would recommend maybe varying your line widths or putting less detail in just so it looks a bit better, because this is the kind of thing that can become quite cluttered really quickly if you're not careful. So you notice I haven't gone in and done all the little hatches on the teeth like I did on the last one. I haven't drawn extra creases where there doesn't need to be. I'm just focusing on creating depth and the anatomy itself, making it obvious what it is so it doesn't just become a cat-shaped blob, which can be really tricky with skulls if you're trying something like this at home. You gotta try and not just create a potato with a hole in it, because it's really easy to do. I really enjoyed doing this last design. I did totally wing this. I had a completely different plan to do a frog skeleton, and I decided once I'd already done the other magnets that it didn't actually fit in very well. And so I spent a lot of time winging this one before the cat got involved. Oopsie. No. Ah. So with Mitzi out of the room, and after her trying to destroy my my phone and the things that I was drawing on, I went back into this. I was like, okay, everything else has gold teeth. We'll give it gold teeth. This was my thought process with this. Not a lot of it went into it. I wanted to see if I could still draw skulls, and I was like, you know what? If I hate it, I can just spray paint over it. And I think that's a good mentality for when you're doing completely winging it, freehand stuff like this, is if I fuck it up, it doesn't matter. I can just paint over it. And once you get in that mentality, I feel like you're more likely to create something good because you're not stressing about it or overthinking it. At this point, I was a little bit dubious about whether or not I actually liked this design, saying all that. So I was like, okay, I need to just go in before I think about something for the bottom, which I do add in later, and just add in these details because it was looking really, really flat. And if you're finding that with your own work, sometimes just adding in a little bit of cracks and a little bit of depth or shading can really take your work from looking 2D to 3D, even though it's on a flat object. So these are the finished magnets. I'm very, very pleased with how these have come out. And considering that they used to look like this, I think these are a bit more tasteful, personally, in my opinion. And I'm delighted because I have this entire sheet of magnetic strips that I can cut up, or you could, if you're doing something similar at home, and use on the backs of other things in the future. I'm thinking for my next video about using these hearts. I was originally just going to stick them on the back of things, but I've had a couple ideas for a set, which I think would be quite nice. And if you want to see me make something in particular, maybe a clay thing, you should let me know in the comments below, because I do read every single one, and I like getting suggestions from what you guys would actually like to learn how to make. But otherwise, I'm really pleased with these. and I don't often do projects anymore nowadays where I kind of don't overplan it. Like, for some of these I did do a very quick, I don't know, like 10-minute sketch. But this one I did completely out of my head without any reference, and I'm quite pleased that I remember how to draw skulls. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, and if you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!